This really matters because we've got Australian politicians, and I've always said manage the relationship is code for shut up and let China get away with it. And sadly, there are people like Dave Sharma, the Liberal MP, that are actually saying things like that. We'll hear from him first, the academic second. Here we go.
We should continue to pursue a constructive relationship with China, but I think we'll need to be patient in many respects, and we'll also need to continue to outline our red lines and non-negotiable demands and defend our sovereignty, but make clear that we do seek a constructive, pragmatic relationship with China based upon where we've got mutual interest. That's always the basis of interaction between nations.
Just don't like the manage the relationship conversation because I believe it truly is code for shut up. But one more time, this is an economics professor, and this is an economics professor speaking to a room full of people in China, all giggling along about how stupid the West is, because China's found ways to infiltrate the highest elements of the West, that of course being the money, and the money that links from Wall Street back to Washington. One more time.
跟我们打贸易战。那么我们为什么搞不定特朗普政府？啊？为什么以前1992年到2016年之间，中美之间各种问题都能搞得定，是不是？大家发现没有？所有的危机，不管是银河号事件，还是炸大使馆，还是撞了飞机，所有事情全部是床头吵架床尾和，2个月之内搞定。什么原因？啊，这儿我抛出一个可能又要是暴论了，就是因为咱们上边有人，啊，就是我们在美国的权势核心圈啊，我们有我们的老朋友。
Lauren, when you see a video like that, what does it make you think about just how open China is, or parts of the Chinese diaspora are, about just how gullible the West is?
Yeah, and that's the thing. They're doing all of this in the open. They are mocking us in the open. They are using our own tactics against us, like progressive politics. We are in a trade war with them. They are in gray zone warfare at the moment, making moves against us. And this is going to be a waiting game. All China has to do to become the #1 superpower in the world is wait, because we are capitulating at every turn. They have people within our government making decisions for us, apparently, and we have people within our government that aren't Chinese or aren't even sold out that are supporting China. As you mentioned, Dave Sharma is saying we need to be meek, we need to agree with China. In fact, he even said we need to beware not to fall into McCarthyism. Too late, bud. We are there, except the McCarthyism is being used against people that actually love this country instead of communists who want to destroy it. It's called cancel culture, and it's being used to shut up people who want to prevent the destruction of our sovereignty, who love free speech, who are conservatives, who stand for this nation. And to hear people moralizing about McCarthyism and censorship and not attacking China, meanwhile, China are perfectly happy to censor the West, perfectly happy to delete and completely wipe any of our content off their social media. It's so frustrating. It's so foolish of us to do.
Okay, I just met her tonight, but I don't know who that person is, but I've economically and politically fallen in love with her. That is it. That is, mate, that's
Lauren,
basically it.
This is it, mate. She's a good Sheila, comes from Canada. She's a straight talker, and she's welcome amongst us at all times, every time. But what do you mate, think about what you just...
She's from British Columbia. It's hardly Canada. It's close enough to Australia. A great exporter of mineral resources. We like that. BC.
You've actually got a colony in BC, Whistler.
And BC has great rugby players too, by the way, just quietly, just saying. Played against BC. They were hard so-and-sos up on the rugby paddock. Now, what we've got here also, and Henry Ergas pointed to this, and I wrote it on Facebook, 40,000 reads so far, compradors, the people, and putting in your parlance, who live in the little fella's house but make excuse for the big fella who wants to put them out of the house. Now, compradors are always there, agents of the other party. And we will see that more and more and more. People whose, obviously, their economic future is tied to China, so they make excuses for China's behaviour. And you can't do that. Otherwise, all those 102,800, close to 871 or something, close to 103,000 people who have their names on brass at the other end of this street in this town called Canberra, that means they died for nothing, because you are saying that the liberties that they went out and gave their lives for to protect are meaningless, because you don't wish, because it might hurt you a little bit, you don't wish to respect the sacrifice they made. Well, I'm telling you, patriotism ain't something you just park away at 5 o'clock on the 25th of April. Patriotism is something that you keep with yourself in the belief of your nation all the way through. All the way through. Now, what China is doing is right up with Sun Tzu tactics. They just push forward and they see if you want to push back. And they push forward a little bit more and see if you want to push back. And when they realise you don't have the ticket to push back, they say what Sun Tzu always wanted. We can win this war without firing a bullet because these people will just keep walking backwards.
Absolutely. Now, Nicholas, why are we all wrong?
Well, look, I mean, some of the things that you've said are right, but no, overall, you are wrong. I'm sorry. I mean, look, Australia needs to play a deft hand in these things and not be stupid. And the fact is, not just hundreds, not thousands, but literally hundreds of thousands of Australians' livelihoods depend on our trade relationship with China. It counts for over 30% of every dollar we earn through exports goes or comes
what are you
from
offering?
China. And so, you know, when you're dealing with your
what are you offering up, Nicholas?
important customer, you do try and manage the relationship. So, for example, did
Do you
Australia
want your paycheck
really
or your
need...
sovereignty?
Hey, hang on, just let me finish my point. Then you can have a crack right back. But this is not about sovereignty,
Keep going, Neville
and
Chamberlain.
it's not about compromising on our values or anything like that. It's about playing smart. So, did Australia really need to be the first country in the world to come out and say, "Hey, we're not going to use Huawei kit in our telecommunications system"? Did we really need to be the first country in the world to say there needs to be some sort of international inquiry into COVID-19?
Imagine if you were talking like this about climate change.
Officials in, and yet, and did we really need our Prime Minister to stand up last week and call a press conference to go after some middle-ranking spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Department, some clown who's a wolf warrior or whatever he thinks he is, having a crack at us? Like, you don't see President Xi ponying up for those sort of things, do you?
Put it out?
So I just feel like we haven't played our cards particularly well.
Why didn't the Chinese censor that crap off, like they did the Prime Minister's stuff off?
So China just looks at us as a middle-ranking power that probably doesn't matter too much to them. Certainly they matter more to us than we do to them. And they just say, OK, we're just going to make an example of Australia now.
And that's what they're doing. Why should Australia lead the world? We should not lead the world on something that destroyed our economy, Gideon, that killed hundreds of our citizens, but we must lead the world on climate change. Well, it does not matter what the rest of the world's standard is then.
But that's kind of the point. Look, I don't
think
agree
we've
with
ever
David Sharma.
led the world on climate change, Paul. I mean, come on, let's call that one out. We've never even dared to get anywhere near leading the world on climate change. In fact, we've always been such a laggard. It's about can we even...
Because we're
on climate change, can we even get sort of...
Hold on.
In front of a country that doesn't abide by any laws, any WTO laws. How ridiculous is it? We're going to lead China. China doesn't give a toss what we think. And that has never been exemplified in a better form than now. Yet we're going to put ourselves out of power for China.
Look, I'm going to meet Nick halfway here. I don't agree with Nick. I don't agree with Dave Sharma. But look, you made the point yourself, Paul. There are wine producers worried about shutting up shop in Australia right now. Correct. There are coal miners who are worried about losing their jobs right now. Now, I've always been the first to say we should not put COVID before jobs. We should not put climate before jobs. We have to at least consider the argument that this the very real conflict with China is having an effect on jobs. But in the final analysis, there is no other option. We do need to stick up for our sovereignty. But I'm sorry, I won't dismiss these arguments out of hand. We need to consider them.
But, Lauren, the very reason why the jobs are at risk is because of economic coercion, because of China trying to show us their power as a customer to be able to turn the tap on, turn the tap off, and increasingly the more you become reliant upon that economic output, their capacity to be able to get what they want becomes a lot easier if the line of consumerism is as wide as possible.
Precisely. And this is what I meant when I said this is a waiting game for China. They want us to keep going. They want us to keep waiting and not push back so they can gain more and more control. And as you said, it's going to be like the Soviet Union with the taps in Eastern Europe, where they can just shut off our economy whenever they want. They're going to own all our property. They're going to own our politicians. They're going to own our exports and imports. And when they want to cripple us, It'll be like that. So it's going to be a lot easier now to diversify. It's going to be a lot easier now to try to find other trade partners, to try to bolster up these industries that are going to hurt as we pull back from trading with China. But as I mentioned before, this is eventually going to get to that turning point where it will be, do you want your paycheck or do you want your sovereignty? And we can make that decision now, or we can make it where we have no wiggle room 10 years from now.